Welcome to Should Have Known It, where we present 15-minute videos of things you definitely should have known. Hi, welcome to Shoulda Known It. I'm Ms. Aoki, and today's topic is the anchor problem. The psychological phenomenon is called anchoring, and it was documented in a landmark 1974 study by Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman. They spun a wheel rigged to stop at either 10 or 65, then asked people completely unrelated numerical questions like what percentage of African nations are in the United Nations. People who saw 65 on the wheel guessed higher, every time. The wheel had nothing to do with the question. What that study revealed is that the human brain treats the first number it encounters as a gravitational center and bends all subsequent estimates toward it, even when the person knows the number is arbitrary. Now apply that to a salary conversation. The recruiter says, "We're thinking around 65,000. You now have a cognitive anchor lodged in your brain. Everything you say next will orbit that number." Salary researchers have quantified this effect, specifically in employment negotiations. A 2011 study published in the Journal of Applied Psychology found that the initial anchor in salary negotiations moves the final outcome by somewhere between 10 and 30%. On a $65,000 job, that's a $6,000 to $20,000 swing. Over a 40-year career, with raises and promotions and 401k matches compounding on top of your base salary, a single anchoring mistake in a single conversation can cost you $200,000 or more. And the asymmetry is brutal. The recruiter has done this exact negotiation dozens of times this year. They know the range, they set the anchor deliberately. You have done this maybe 4 or 5 times in your adult life and you're nervous, and you probably already have a number in your head that you'd be happy to accept, which means you're actually anchoring yourself before they even open their mouths. You've heard the advice: do your research, know your number, go in confident, and the research part is correct, we'll get to that. But go in with your number ready is actually the dangerous half-truth that gets people in trouble. It primes you to name first. The moment you're holding a number you'd be happy with, you're tempted to say it. Resist that. Here's what actually happens in most negotiations. The recruiter asks, "So, what are you looking for?" And the candidate, who has done their homework and feels prepared, says something like, "I'm looking for around 80,000. They feel good. They set a number. They didn't lowball themselves. But what they just did was give the recruiter a ceiling. If the budget was 90, the recruiter is now thinking about how to land you at 82 and call it a win. The person who names first in a salary negotiation doesn't just risk anchoring low, they eliminate all the information they could have extracted by waiting. Once you say a number, the recruiter stops revealing their hand. Before you say a number, they're still playing. So what do you actually say when they ask? You have 3 reliable moves, and you should know all 3 cold because different interviewers respond differently to each one. The first is the range flipping question. When the recruiter asks, "What are you looking for?" you say, "I'd love to hear what range you've budgeted for this role." That's the whole sentence. It's polite, it's professional, and it puts the number obligation back where it belongs. On the person who actually set the budget, about 60% of the time, they'll just tell you. The range is not secret information. They've usually already listed it internally. They were just testing whether you'd flinch first. The second move is the deferral. "I'm still learning about the full scope of the role and would want to have a complete picture before I anchor on a number, but I'm confident we can find something that works for both of us." This one is more comfortable for people who find the direct question flip too aggressive. It signals that you're thoughtful, that you've done this before, and that you're not going to panic and name something. The third is the range with a floor. If you've been pushed twice and must give something, you give a range where your actual target number is at the bottom. If you want 90,000, you say somewhere in the 90 to 105 range, depending on the full compensation package. Now you've named a number, but your anchor is 90, not 82. And you've already introduced full compensation package as a variable, which opens the door to signing bonuses, equity, and vacation time. Now, they've named their number or their range, and it's lower than you hoped. This is the moment where most people fill the silence immediately. They say, "Okay, that's lower than I expected, but maybe we could." And they have just negotiated against themselves before the recruiter said a single word. The research on silence in negotiation is consistent. The first person to speak after an offer is made concedes psychological ground. You don't need to be rude. You don't need to stonewall. You just need to not speak for 3 to 5 seconds. That's it. 3 to 5 seconds of genuine silence after a lowball offer communicates that you are not thrilled. that you expected better, and that the burden of moving now falls on them. Many recruiters will partially self correct in that silence. They'll say, I know that's at the lower end of our range, or there may be some flexibility there. After the silence, your response is not a counteroffer. Not yet. It's a question. What's the flexibility there, or what would it take to get to the top of that range? You are still extracting information. You're not bidding against yourself. The counteroffer comes one move later once you know whether there's a ceiling, a freeze, a policy, or just a recruiter hoping you won't push. 3 words, the most powerful 3 words in employment negotiation. I have a competing offer. I want to be precise about what these words do because they're often misunderstood. They're not just leverage, they are the only thing that converts a negotiation from a preference discussion into a real time market auction. Without a competing offer, you are arguing about what you're worth in the abstract. With a competing offer, you are reporting a market fact. The company has to decide whether they want to compete for you or not, and that decision has a deadline. Everything changes. A 2015 Stanford Graduate School of Business study found that candidates who disclosed competing offers during salary negotiation received final packages that were, on average, 18% higher than those who didn't, and they accepted faster because both sides stopped posturing. But the competing offer has rules. First, it has to be real. Fabricating one is not just ethically bad, it's tactically fragile. Recruiters call each other. Offers have written documentation. If you get caught, you lose the job and your professional reputation in the same phone call. Second, you don't lead with the number. You say, I have a competing offer I'm seriously considering, and you let them ask about it. They will ask. Then you tell them the number and let them react. And here's the thing that surprises most people. You don't actually need a competing offer from a direct competitor. An offer from any employer creates the auction. The company isn't competing against that specific role. They're competing against the outcome of you leaving. A software engineer with an offer from a law firm has just as much leverage as one with an offer from another tech company. Because the relevant question isn't, is this comparable? It's, do we want to lose this candidate right now? Before you walk into any negotiation, you need to know your BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. This is Fisher and Urey's concept from Getting to Yes, first published in 1981, and it remains the most useful single idea in negotiation theory. Your BATNA is what you actually do if this negotiation fails completely. And I want to be clear, BATNA is not what you're hoping for. It is not your ideal, it's your walkaway. If you're currently employed, your BATNA is probably your current job. If you're not, your BATNA might be a lesser offer, or freelancing, or taking 3 months to find something better. Whatever it is, writing it down before the conversation, literally writing it on paper, changes how you negotiate. Here's why. When you don't know your BATNA, you're negotiating under existential pressure. Every counteroffer feels like it could be the last one. You flinch. You accept things you shouldn't. When you know your BATNA is solid, if this falls through, I'll stay where I am. And that's actually fine. You negotiate from patience. Patient negotiators almost always outperform anxious ones, even when their qualifications are identical. The other number you need before the conversation is your reservation price, the absolute minimum you would accept. This is different from your target. Your target is what you want. Your reservation price is the number below which you will politely decline the offer and execute your BATNA. Many people have never named this number to themselves. Without it, just a little more can get negotiated down one compromise at a time until you've accepted something you'd have refused at the start. Here's where experienced negotiators extract enormous value that amateurs leave on the table. Most companies have much more flexibility in non-salary compensation than in base salary. Base salary has headcount budget codes, payroll systems, internal equity constraints. Signing bonuses come from a different bucket. Equity comes from another. Extra vacation days rarely show up in any budget at all. If you've hit the ceiling on base and they've said that's the absolute max, and sometimes that's true, the next sentence is not okay. The next sentence is, given that the base is firm, can we talk about the signing bonus? A signing bonus is a one-time payment. It doesn't affect internal equity. It doesn't set a precedent for other employees' raises. Hiring managers have approved signing bonuses 10 minutes after calling a salary final. I have seen this happen. Remote work flexibility has real dollar value. If a job is asking you to commute 90 minutes a day, that's 3 hours of your life and often real commuting costs. I'd like to discuss the remote work arrangement is a negotiation about something worth conservatively $15,000 to $20,000 a year in time and money to many candidates. Companies that can't budge on salary will often bend on this because it shows up as a perk, not a payroll line. Before any of these techniques work, you need numbers to anchor against. Your anchor must be defensible. If you state a number you can't justify, experienced recruiters will probe it, and you'll lose credibility, which is worse than naming a number too low. For specific roles, use levels.fyi for tech roles. Their data is self-reported by verified employees and broken down by level, company, and location. It is dramatically more granular than Glassdoor. For non-tech roles, LinkedIn Salary and the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Occupational Employment, and Wage Statistics both provide geographic breakdowns. PayScale is useful specifically because it lets you filter by years of experience, education level, and industry, which gives you a defensible floor. The goal is to name a range that you can attribute to market data if pressed. Based on comparable roles at similar companies in this market, the range is running between 90 and 110,000. That sentence is not aggressive, it's neutral. You're reporting a market fact the same way you reported the competing offer. The recruiter cannot argue with market data without implicitly admitting their offer is below market, which is not a position they want to be in publicly. One last move that almost nobody uses but that data strongly supports: negotiate by email, at least partially. I know it feels less human. Do it anyway. Email gives you a documented record, which matters if the verbal offer differs from the written one later. But the bigger advantage is cognitive. Email removes the social pressure of the real-time pause. You can take 4 hours to respond to a counter. You can show the email to a trusted mentor before you reply. You can carefully construct a sentence like, "I'm very excited about this opportunity, and I want to make it work. Given my research into the market and my specific experience with X and Y, I was hoping we could land at 105. Is there flexibility there?" That sentence took me 45 seconds to write. In a phone call, nervous candidates mangle it every time. The standard move is to get the verbal offer. Say, "I'm really excited, can I follow up with any questions in writing?" And then send your counter by email. Almost every recruiter will agree. They're used to it. And now you've shifted the negotiation to the medium where you have the advantage. A few things that will cost you. Do not volunteer your current salary unless it is legally required. And in many states now, it is explicitly illegal for employers to ask. California, New York, Illinois, Massachusetts, Colorado. If you're in one of those states and they ask, you can simply say, "I understand that's not a permissible question in this state." That sentence ends the conversation cleanly. Do not apologize before your counter. "I don't want to be difficult, but," and "I hope this isn't too much to ask," are both signals that you expect to be denied, which invites denial. You're not apologizing for applying for the job. Don't apologize for asking to be paid fairly for it. And please, do not name a number that ends in a zero. "I'm looking for 80,000, sounds like a round guess." "I'm looking for 83,000, sounds like you ran the numbers." Research by Adam Galinsky at Columbia Business School confirms that specific anchors are treated as more credible and receive less pushback than round number. The difference between 80 and 83 costs you nothing to say and may be worth thousands. Let's be explicit about what's at stake. Suppose you negotiate your starting salary from 68,000 to 75,000. That's $7,000. Nice, but your next salary negotiation often starts from your current salary. Your annual raise is often a percentage of base. Your 401k match is often a percentage of base. After 15 years of 3% raises compounding on a 75,000 base instead of 68, you are looking at a total compensation difference that exceeds $160,000 from a single conversation that took 11 minutes. That is not a rounding error. That is a car. That is a year of college tuition. That is the retirement contribution you could have been making but weren't because you were too nervous to wait out a 3-second silence and ask one polite question. The research is clear. The techniques are learnable, and none of this requires you to be aggressive or confrontational or someone you're not. It requires you to understand that the recruiter is doing a job, you are doing a job, and a negotiation is just two professionals exchanging information about the value of work. You deserve to be paid what you're worth. You already know what that is. Now you know how to say it. Practice the phrases out loud before the call. Seriously. Out loud, not in your head. The words, "I'd love to hear what range you've budgeted for this role," should come out of your mouth as naturally as your name, because the moment you need it, your heart will be pounding, and muscle memory is the only thing that holds. Good luck. Go get paid. And that brings us to the end. Thank you for joining me and learning something new. Until next time, click like and subscribe.